With Chief Executive of New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing, Bernard Saundry, to provide the industry an update, given the fact that New Zealand is under COVID-19 level 4 from later tonight. Bernard's obviously for the New Zealand thoroughbred industry specifically, pretty drastic and quick measures to take place to look after the animals first and foremost, and also staff.
Very true, Jason. Yes, level 4 comes into play at midnight tonight. Swift move by the government to try and eradicate this virus, or manage the virus better, or reduce the curve as we know it. And we've decided on the basis that the government wouldn't allow us to race. We had to stop, of course. And we've had to now move to the welfare of the horse. And we're now in lockdown for 4 weeks. We have been dealing with the Ministry of Primary Industry to try and work through the containment of our horses and the welfare of our horses. And over the last 24 hours, we've been able to get support from the government to have the care of the thoroughbred as an essential service. And we're moving in that direction. Stud farms, training centres, training establishments will be able to continue to, what I'll say, exercise the horse, feed the horse, provide it the right care in order for the well-being of the horse to be maintained. And there are protocols that will be put in place. The MPI, you'll need to register with the MPI if you're a business or a trainer that has more than 5 people engaged in that employment or in that training establishment that cannot guarantee the biosecurity measures. You will need to register, and that registration needs to be done by 5 o'clock this Friday. And I'd have to stress that it's not training as normal. There's no jump outs, there's no trials. We all have to be responsible in delivering and delivering the right outcomes. First and foremost, it's the priority is the welfare of the horse. And the MPI have been good enough with the government to allow us to continue to exercise the horse at training tracks and at race tracks. And we have seen over the last 24 hours, trainers make choices. Some trainers have decided to tip horses out and adjust them. Others would like to continue to exercise their horses. What we're doing is giving them a framework with the MPI to achieve that.
And to confirm, to be very clear about the 2 things that MPI are most interested in, that's the number of people within an established operation and also social distancing measures. Those really are 2 very key things. And from there, they are operating a registration process, which New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing will have links to for participants to be very clear about themselves.
Absolutely. So what you'll see is on our website, some initial guidance. There are further protocols that NZTR, the Trainers Association, the Breeders Association will provide to assist training establishment and stud farms to make the proper application. And that'll be done over the course of the afternoon and early tomorrow to ensure that anyone that wants to be registered or needs to be registered and needs to show those social distancing measures and all that criteria is up on our website. That's loveracing.nz. And for all updates through this period, that's the best place to find information around what the industry's doing, the changes that are occurring, and there's a phase we'll need to move to. Is how do we establish racing coming out of this really catastrophic virus that's impacted everyone across the world.
What will racing look like in 4 weeks, and what will it need to be prepared for if that drop back does occur in a best case scenario? And even if it doesn't, how will it look like in 8 weeks or 12 weeks when eventually we anticipate we will be able to operate again?
Well, the answer to that's in twofold. One is it depends on what level we go back to. I'm assuming that we'll go back to level 3, which will be a containment exercise, no public. That's one consideration. The next consideration is, given we'll have horses out in paddocks, there'll have to be a ramp-up phase, and that might take 3 months. There might be another, bringing other horses in out of the paddock, another 6 months. But there's one thing for sure, Jason. What we saw as a racing structure a week ago will not be the new normal in 6 to 12 months' time. And so we have to think differently around how we structure our racing, how we bring horses back into work, and what the future looks like. And it's no different to any other sport or business, whether it's the NRL, the AFL, soccer. Every business is going to change, and we need to look at ways to, because obviously getting the income back into the sport is critical. We know that from the TAB and the 3 codes, the financial impact this will have on the industry is substantial, and we are talking to government about how do we work together to get this great industry that's worth $1.6 billion of economic impact to the New Zealand economy back on its feet. And there's a process that we need to go through, but the first phase will be ramping up, and we've started to turn our minds to that. We'll talk to a number of our clubs, our stakeholders over the next week to start to socialise, and we'll have some of the trainers around what can this thing look like, taking stock of the horses, taking stock of our people. But will need to be changed, and in 12 months' time, I'm imagining this business will look very different.
Given how racing and New Zealand thoroughbred racing entered into this, what do you think will be left on the other side? Do you have any inkling as to the number of participants that will be able to weather this period of time where they won't have any income? They might have owners that will drop out. Do you have any inkling as to those numbers or that picture?
I haven't got, and I wouldn't like to predict that, but there will be change, Jason. I think one thing I do know is I'm amazed how resilient the New Zealand participants are. I'm really proud of the way they've adapted to this change. Just in the last 4 or 5 days, I'm amazed at the resilience of owners in this country. The way they keep presenting horses, their average field sizes. It's been a credit to the New Zealand industry off the back of a distribution model where we've been spending money that we haven't earned. So when you parlay that into a resilient racing industry, and clearly the industry before this virus outbreak was looking for change under the Masara review, I can't help but think, I haven't worked out what that looks like yet. We'll have to do that with the cooperation and the support of all our stakeholders over the next month to 6 weeks on what that could look like. And there will be some tough times ahead. I'm not going to gild the lily. We'll need the government support and some robust thinking and some new thinking on how we run racing.
The government has been very active in offering support, not to specific, industries, but very broadly across businesses and sole traders. There must be many racing participants, trainers who run their business, jockeys as self-employed people, and others that are in the game that will qualify for the first rollout of government assistance?
Correct. So what we've found is that there is clearly government subsidies available, and there are clubs and jockeys and trainers making those applications. And anyone listening today will, if you can go to our website, that's got all the details on how to make the application. The feedback I'm getting from our clubs is it's a simple 3-step process. So to encourage clubs and participants to get online and make those applications for the wage subsidy in the short term. And then we're working with Rita and the 3 codes on an approach to government to support us longer term.
And that sounds like it is going to be a coordinated approach as opposed to an individual code approach. It sounds like it's coordinated amongst the codes, and as you mentioned, Rita.
It has to be, Jason, and very much there's 4 entities that have got responsibility in setting up this structure in the future, and we're meeting with Rita on a daily basis at 4 o'clock through this crisis, and things are evolving as we speak.
In relation to the government regulations, obviously the MPI regulations, as well as the offer of support, does New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing have a contact that can help participants if required via, I know it's difficult with everyone in social isolation. Are there avenues, though, either a phone number or an email address where questions can be posed and answered?
Yes, so in terms of the wage subsidy, we've got Leanne Meredith, and her contact details are available on the website. And in terms of the MPI, through Martin Burns, who has done an outstanding job in the last 24 hours to work with the various entities within the government and also our stakeholder groups to bring this to fruition. And Marty's email is martin.burns@nztr.co.nz, as is Leanne Meredith's, leanne.meredith@nztr.co.nz, leanne.meredith, MEREDITH, @nztr.co.nz. And if you're having trouble navigating the site, or navigating some of the government requirements, we're trying to make it as simple as possible. The wage subsidy is a 3-step process. As you can appreciate, the MPI process is only just evolving and getting clarified, but we do want to help the participants. We do understand that time is of the essence. With our trainers and training establishments got until the end of the week to register, we'll do whatever we can to make sure that process is as seamless as possible.
I suppose, Bernard, New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing itself and participants still fall into the fabric and New Zealand society. So we all need to do our part, don't we? So even though we have those guidelines from MPI, how important is it that we are still very vigilant and in many respects are not letting the side down and doing all we can to make sure that as a country we can be back on track? Yeah,
never a truer word. And, our whole racing community needs to be socially responsible. We realise this is a virus that can move through the community really quickly. And we've got to be, as I've said, socially responsible. We can't be arrogant about how we approach this. And that's why I said before around the MPI conditions or protocols, it's not business as usual, and I can't stress that enough. But I am really proud of the way participants and owners and trainers and our staff have been fantastic in putting their nose to the grindstone to assist the participants and the patients that our associations have been with us and will need to continue to be over the coming months. As we all know, this thing's changing daily. What we knew yesterday changes today. What I knew last Friday, who would have thought we'd be sitting here today with ceasing racing for 4 weeks and shutting the whole country down, shutting every border down. But I support what's gone on. We want the virus eradicated or managed, and we'll do whatever responsible to do that.
Just before we go, it's a horrible question, but a number of people at the very least want to hear something about this. But do you believe there will be New Zealand racing and a facility for people to race thoroughbreds, and there will be an industry, however long it takes for us to be under control of COVID-19?
Yes, Jason, I'm doing my very best to make sure we can get back racing. There will be a racing industry, but there will be a new normal. There is an opportunity here to restructure, but it's going to need the support of all our participants and to think differently around how we structure racing for the future.
Thanks, Bernard. All the best to you and your team for what will be an ongoing task and a very arduous one, I'm sure. Stay well.
Thanks, Jason.